Welcome to part 2 of the build. So we're going to be focusing on painting up the car, doing final assembly, getting all the bits and pieces together, and getting the decals on. So buckle up, let's go for a ride. Okay, so at this point I'm painting the headliner, and I use black magic marker around that edge just to kind of make it a little bit easier, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the blanks. Big thing is just trying to get the strokes as even as I can. First base coat, it's going to be the inside top liner where most people aren't even going to see it anyway. It is neat because it is textured, so if you wanted to, you could do a unique look with it if you really wanted to customize it. But again, we're focusing on the basics here. Enamel's pretty much lay down and smooth out a little bit as you go. Again, I wanted a color match interior, so your side A pillar, B pillar, part of the roof would be red to match the outside of the car. Doesn't matter if some of the parts are inside that aren't going to be seen or a little sloppy because they won't be seen. Just continuing to focus on painting up around the trim. That way if anything is visible, you'll see red and not white. Trying to be as neat as I can, but this brush is, again, not the best brush in the world. So, okay, the interior as far as what's going to be seen is pretty much painted up. Time to switch over to the body. And now the big thing with the body is trying to do long strokes. I know I'm doing short strokes right now. Just get some paint on there. And then the key is light strokes. Very, very light strokes. You don't want to be pushing down hard. You don't want to be trying to smash it into it. You want to really barely touch it, just enough to get the paint on it. Try to keep all your strokes in one direction as much as you can, especially on the larger flat surfaces. The little side pillars and stuff are going to be really difficult to see anyway, as far as details. So just try to get long strokes. And if you're going to go a stroke like that, go from front to back in one stroke. Don't like hit it in the middle. You can kind of see the brush strokes there, but it smooths and evens out with the enamel as it dries because it kind of flows and levels out. And again, just around those little edges and pieces, it's try to get it in one long stroke as much as you can. These brushes don't hold a ton of paint, and they don't really well at spreading the paint, so I had to do the best I could with it. Just continuing to focus on trying to paint up the body here. Just showing different parts. It looks really bad now, but it does even out. The other thing is don't slather like a ton of paint on it because you can hide some of the details. Just try to get just enough paint on there for coverage. First part, you're just trying to get some paint on there, and then you'll do long, really long strokes to even it out. And again, there are tools and things you could use to hold the car body while you're painting it. But again, this is about focusing on the basics and just using basic tools. So yeah, your hand's going to get a little gummy. So maybe wear some rubber gloves. But if you don't have any, oh well, your hands wash. And pretty much that's the majority of it that needs to be painted. Yeah, I got some paint on my hand. Okay, now I'm focusing on the hood. Figured it was easier just to leave it on the tree to paint it. And then I'll cut that nub off later, and then I'll just touch up the space where I cut off with a little bit of paint. That's the only thing about painting on the tree is that you will have to touch up that space. But makes it easier to hold it. Long, smooth strokes. But you see how it's building up on the edge? You want to make sure and fan that out. Don't forget the underside just in case. Now, again, I'm not going to be showing the hood open or anything, so it's not a big deal, but just in case, I went ahead and painted it. Those two little holes there, there's a part of the air cleaner that connects to the hood, which will go in those holes later. Okay, so the body was actually left alone for a couple of days to dry because they didn't have a way to dry it yet. So this is about 2 days later. So now I'm using a silver Sharpie because it's better than that paint was doing to simulate the chrome trim. Just be very, very careful, but you can always touch it up. And those windshield wiper blades are where those parts where I'm stopping, and that's the reason I'm leaving them that because I'll have to paint them. I'll have to do it with black. So I'm just thinking about that chrome edging, and if I remember, it was hard to remember if there was chrome edging on the door panel itself because it's been a long time since I've actually looked at the 69 Camaros. So do your reference, you use some reference photos, and that way you can make sure you get your little details in there. And I ended up touching that up later, so I didn't leave the silver on there permanently. And it's hard to see the detail, but there's kind of the chrome piece is a little bit wider than you think. And there was two pieces there, so you have to leave the A-pillar there in between. And yes, I did go back and touch up that silver that was on the red. That didn't need to be there. Try to be as light as you can, but you're trying to get it on there so you can simulate that chrome. There's many ways to do chrome. You can paint it chrome, you can use bare metal foil, you can use Sharpie, or you can use paint. Here I'm touching up the details. That's the key lock, or where the key goes, the door lock, and the handle. These handles are not great. Again, there's aftermarket parts where you can shave the handles off, and you could actually put a real looking handle on there if you want to. But I wanted to simulate the chrome, so I painted them chrome with the pen. And remember, these tiny details are difficult to see from a distance, but it helps. So the windshield wiper blades, the actual metal arm part, I wanted to look aluminum, so that's when I went ahead and highlighted them with the silver marker. Okay, I'm going to use the black Sharpie to actually highlight the blades of the windshield wipers, so the rubber part. And again, they have aftermarket parts that you could replace these with, like photo etched or 3D printed windshield wipers. But again, focusing on the basics here. And you can kind of see in the reflections how the paint strokes and everything have evened out better or leveled out better. So again, working on the fine details, that's the trunk key latch or key slot, keyhole. And then there's Camaro badges on the sides, which some of them, some kits will include decals, water slide decals. Or again, you can bare metal foil these, you can paint them with chrome, you can use a chrome Sharpie. These details are super, super small on the car, so they're not very easy to see. So that way I just highlighted them just to make it look like there's something there. And some will have decals that go on the side marker lights to make them look better. You could do the outside in chrome and then do the inside yellow if you wanted to. Just the lightest touch you can. You're just trying to, it's almost like dry brushing the edges. And again, I don't have my really good glasses, and I didn't have like a magnifier on, so it was just touching, barely touching it, just to try to get a hint of the silver on the emblems. It does the job. Okay, putting the glass in. The glass was a little fiddly. There wasn't really like a lip or anything, but the visors would glue to the roof, so that was the major gluing point. But you also want to try to glue it around. I tried to leave some white styrene, but I wasn't sure how far the glass was going to go in when I painted it. But the glue held really well, and you can see it actually used the capillary action and went around it. And the glue holds a lot better through marker than it does paint. Try not to get glue on your glass, because if you do, it's a really big pain in the butt to get it off the glass. You can, but it's still a pain in the butt. You can actually see that capillary action happen there, which is really cool to see when it does that. Same thing for the back glass, just do the best you can. Some people use tape, and they'll tape the window in and then glue it down. Some use their fingers. It all depends. There's many different techniques. I just discovered if I held it down and then let the glue do its action around it, worked just fine. Make sure your fingers are really clean if you're going to do that, or you might end up with fingerprints on your glass because it's plastic. Clear plastic. Like, that's a no-brainer. Sorry. Okay, glass is done, so now it's time to do the firewall. That's should be the brake master booster and the brake master cylinder. So just doing a quick test fit, seems good. Go ahead and glue it up. And there is a slight protrusion on the back so that it locks into the brake booster. And then the same thing with the brake master cylinder. There's a slot for it to fit in better. Remember to hold it for 5 seconds or so to help it set. Okay, time to put the interior into the vehicle. There's a little pin on the back that there's a hole that it matches up with. So I was getting that lined up. And then I just found where all the points were touching on the inside styrene and just added glue to it. So it would glue it into the body. Didn't take much. Just making sure. When in doubt, just you can use a little bit more glue. Again, don't do a ton. Just want enough to be able to make sure it holds. Again, I wanted to make sure it was nice and secure. And there we go. Okay, now I'm gluing the firewall in to the interior of the engine bay. And I figured, no, I didn't paint it yet. I was just going to, so I could get the styrene glue, I figured I'll paint it after the fact. I'll be honest, I completely forgot to paint the firewall in my excitement to get everything painted and put together. But again, I'm not displaying it with the hood open, so nobody's going to see the firewall anyway. But I should have painted it. Well, it's up to you. I mean, if you're not going to display the interior of the engine bay, you don't even need to do this part. So it's all up to you. Okay, I went ahead and test fit the chrome grille with the headlight covers on already and just gluing it up. There was an option to have the headlights displayed open, and they had a couple of lenses that you could put in there, but I wanted it with everything closed. All right, this was a mess. So this is what I was talking about, those little posts that were on the side that you put the tires onto. No, I'm sorry, the wheels. And I realized I messed it up because I popped it in there and it wouldn't hold right and it was all wobbly. I was like, that's just not holding and it's not acceptable. And it was designed to roll, but I mean, it wasn't even staying straight. It was like it just wasn't working. And again, I'm pretty sure I got that inner piece backwards. And I tried and it was just not working. I'm like, okay. So I let most of this be seen because at this point I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut the posts off and then I'm just going to glue flat surface to flat surface. And I kept trying to see if it would fit into a nub part of it, but it took literally getting it almost down to flat surface because there was just still too much poking through. So like, heck with it, just cut it off. Sometimes you got to modify. So this is just to show you sometimes things don't go perfect and you just got to work with it. So I just figured I'll just modify it. Why not? I mean, I just at this point it's just about trying to get the wheels on and level and looking good. Sometimes it takes a lot of fitting. Okay, finally got that one to stick on the back. I was like, the heck with it. I'm not even gonna mess with it. I'm just cutting the nub completely off. I'm sorry, the front. This is the front. There's a lot more flat surface to grab on this one, so I'm like, I'm just gonna do just forget it. Just take the nub off and just put them on. I don't even want to mess with it at this point. I just wanted the tires, the wheels on there. Getting straight to the point, cut it off, glue it up. It's all about what that final piece looks like. And I ended up painting the headers black, so just changed it. There you can see I painted the exhaust gray, just using a lot of like black and white to make like a, I just wanted some kind of contrast on the bottom. Finally got all the wheels on. Okay, sorry I got off camera here, but this should be painting on the front bumper. And I was like, with the paint and everything, I didn't want to risk screwing it up, so I just used the tester cement because I knew it would eat through the paint and it would join the front bumper to the body. You just have to hold it longer to make sure that it's actually going to stay in position. So don't forget that part. All right, time to put the body together. So you kind of slip the engine into the inside of it, try to get the lip to hold, and then you're gonna hear a bunch of scraping and cracking and popping and all that as you do it. But the body is actually, you have to kind of pry the outsides of the body out to go over the chassis. Just be really careful. Don't stretch it too far, but it will pop over there given enough effort and time and patience. That right corner wasn't sitting very well, and I just realized I didn't have that piece, the corner pulled out far enough to get it to pop in. but finally got it to pop in. Just double checking. Had to push up on a couple of parts to make sure everything was seated really well. You always think you're gonna like smash it or break it in half or whatever, try not to push your windows out or something, but I finally got it up there. And here I'm fitting the hood to the front to, well, putting the hood in. And there's two slots on the side, so I kind of had to press it in or pinch it to get it to slide in and then pop down on the hood. And then it sat down pretty well, actually. That's all it took to get the hood on. I didn't glue it on there, so that way I could take it off if I wanted to. Now to put the rear bumper on. Actually, the rear valance or whatever you want to call it, the rear bumper. There's a couple of parts in the chassis that were interfering a little bit, so I had to massage things around a little bit to get it all fit together. But eventually it went together, and then I did put the glue on it and everything, and I'm just massaging the parts to make sure everything is sitting down straight. And everything seems to be good to go. All right, now I'm going to put on, there's the rear license plate. It's flat surface on flat surface. You can scrape it off, scrape the paint off so it's styrene to styrene and scrape the chrome. Or if you have CA glue, super glue, or this Testors stuff, the Testors stuff again will eat through the paint. And then this rear spoiler was fiddly because there wasn't a ledge or anything, so you have to get it lined up well. And again, if you were using regular glue setup and everything, you would just use some sandpaper and scrape it down. But I used the Testors glue, put it on there, and glued it down, and just held it in place until it held. And the rear bumper is actually this piece of chrome, so I had to put that on there. Again, I forgot, I remembered that Testors glue was good for eating through paint. I don't like using it a lot because it leaves strings and stuff, but it worked in this situation. So again, it worked out pretty well for trying to glue parts to paint. It's just messy. And I just added just a little bit more to that outer edge because it wasn't setting down. And there you can see there's some glue. That glue is going to be visible at some point. So these are the rear marker lights. There's these two little lights down there. So I just put a drop of glue on it and put the lens on it. There were clear parts off the clear parts tree. All right, on to the decals. So pick which ones you're going to use. So these are the front stripes and the back stripes, and that's the main things I wanted to focus on. So I'm going to use my X-Acto blade here, or my cheap hobby blade, to go ahead and separate the parts that I wanted from the main decal sheet. These are water slide decals, which means you're going to immerse them in water, and then it's like a carrier film that has the ink and stuff on it. So the water releases it, and then you can slide it onto your part. So you got to work around those two vents that are there in the front part of the body, and you got to work around that hood scoop. So you'll have to massage the stripes down over that complex curve, which gets kind of interesting. And I only like to do one at a time. You could have done both of these at the same time, but it's like I don't like to mess with it that way. I'd rather do it one at a time. So I separate the halves, get it figured out on the orientation. I want to go ahead and take off that little back piece. I didn't like those little back pieces, so I didn't use them. That's the nice thing about building your car. You can do it your way. So I try to trim it pretty close to it so it doesn't leave a lot of visible carrier film around. But you want to leave a little bit of an edge there. And the key to the water is you want to put literally just one little drop of Dawn dishwashing liquid in there, because it helps make the surface more slick, and it helps the decal slide around better. And when you put your decal in the water and you want warm water, it'll automatically curl up, and then you're going to have to kind of it'll flatten out. It takes anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds to 45 seconds, depending on the temperature of the water. But you're looking for when the decal just starts to slide around on the piece of paper. It'll literally you just move it real easy. When you see it sliding, there you go. Sorry, my head's in the way. You want to slide the paper back or slide the paper off, kind of like leaving the decal on your body part. Here I'm using a Q-tip to get the extra water out and push down any bubbles or anything that formed, and I'm massaging it around that edge. And there are aftermarket, it's called Microsol, which is a solvent which helps soften up the decals and makes them easier to set. But again, that's buying other tools. You can do it with the water. You can massage it down. You just got to take your time. Again, sorry, my head gets in the way for part of it. And look, I have no hair. Sorry. But you can kind of see what I'm doing, which is you slide the paper out from underneath. And you can see there's a little bit of bubbles in water. So I'm going to use my Q-tip there to go ahead and pull that extra water out. You can also use a brush or something to absorb the extra water and smooth it out too. That's kind of what I did. And that was the front. And they're on. Onto the rears. Same thing. Put them in the water. Line them up with your part. You can double check with the sheet. And then get it figured out where you want it. When it's nice and slick, you're going to, again, you want to try to pull the, like, you want to hold the decal in place and kind of slide the paper out. And I realized that in the beginning here, I was just trying to get on there, and I'm thinking this doesn't seem right, and I realized that I had it too far back, but I catch it pretty quick and I move it forward up to the window, which is where it's supposed to be. When you get it to the right spot, it will fold over the spoiler perfectly, and I'm going to go right to the edge of that rear bumper, and it fits perfectly. Look beautiful. So I use my paintbrush to kind of have like a straight edge to make sure that I had the front and the back lined up. And I spent a lot of time trying to make sure they were straightened out, but obviously I'm not going to show that in detail. Once I felt that it was straight enough and it was good, I'm like, all right, I'll move on to the next one. That's one of the hardest parts, is trying to make sure that it lined up at the front. And again, double check your orientation, because there was a curved edge with a slight angle to it, and you want to make sure that you get it matched up right, or it'll look kind of funny. And again, use your Q-tip and your brush to massage out any air bubbles, any extra water. You want to get that squeegee off the water, not squeegee. Use a Q-tip to get the extra water off, or a brush. And again, just trying to line it up and make sure it's straight. And here, just showing using the Q-tip to absorb water and to massage the decal down over the rear spoiler. That little spot right there wasn't the best, but I got it down. And then finally, the rear license plate. Just slide it off onto the chrome piece, get it all straightened out. Use your Q-tip to push it down, get the excess water. There you go. And at this point, the car was pretty much done, guys. Welcome to building your first car, and you're done. Congratulations. Go enjoy your car.